Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of the virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise point of orders. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary point of orders or interjection. We shall now proceed to the order, which is the debate on vote number 4, Government Communications and Information Systems, Appropriation Bill. I now recognize the Minister in the Presidency. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of this mini plenary. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Ms. Kakana, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communication, Honorable Boyce Maneli, members of the Portfolio Committee on Communication, honorable members, Directors General of GCIS, Ms. Pumla Williams, members of the management of GCIS. Thank you for the opportunity, Chairperson. We are honored to be presenting this budget vote of the Government Communication and Information System since my appointment in this job. I want to dedicate this budget vote to the memory of the nearly 500 compatriots we lost in the recent natural disaster in KZN. I also dedicate this budget vote to those South Africans and international partners who came to the assistance of our people who were affected by the disaster in so many unfortunate ways. This dedication is born out of our appreciation that the provision of information to the nation and to our partners globally and our engagement with stakeholders at home and abroad is about touching and transforming lives and our economic fortunes for the better. Just a few weeks ago, Chairperson, I was deeply touched by the visit undertaken by our president, some of my colleagues in cabinet and professional and municipal leadership to flood affected communities.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, you are muted. And Honorable McGlure, you are the one who is causing disturbances in the meeting. Can you please mute your microphone? You can proceed, Honorable Minister.
Just a few weeks ago, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Just a few weeks ago, I was deeply touched by the visit undertaken by our president, including some of my colleagues in cabinet and provincial and municipal leadership to flood affected communities. On that visit, we shared heartening moments, sympathizing with the bereaved and affected families. From all walks of life, backgrounds and political persuasion, citizens, businesses, and partners in the rescue and recovery efforts had questions that needed answering. These were questions about how people could access relief and support services. Where do we report missing persons? How do we find out who is searching for our relatives? How will we find out if missing people are found? Who can help us with food? Who can help us? Who can help us with food or accommodation? Beg your pardon, Chair. Will government provide assistance with funerals? Will other schools take in learners from schools that are damaged? These basic questions of survival and necessities of life brought into sharp focus the responsibility that rests on the government communication and information system as the center of public communications in government. This is also a collective responsibility that is shared by all clusters, departments, and entities that make up the government communication system. The disaster in KwaZulu-Natal reminds us that the effective dissemination of information based on engagement with communities and social partners is a key contribution towards healing psychosocial and physical scars and restoring a decimated landscape. This hour of difficulty also reminds us that effective communication has the ability to unlock the very real power of our national treasure of Ubuntu and to open the hearts and pockets of South Africans who want to reach out to people in distress. Tragically, the floods of destruction in KwaZulu-Natal followed waves of COVID-19 infections that claimed many lives and livelihood, but which also fostered resilience, compliance, and creativity in our nation. Honorable members, what I've outlined is part of the backdrop against which we are tabling GSIS 2022-23 budget vote today. The Government Communication and Information System has been allocated 719.9 million for 2022-23 financial year. This allocation reflects baseline reductions of 37.5 million in 2022-23, 5 million in 2022-24, and a baseline increase of 31.9 million in 2024-25. The baseline reductions can be attributed to the fact that there is no additional allocation for the COVID-19 vaccine rollout campaign compared to 2020-21 and 2021-22 financial years. Over the next 3-year and medium-term expenditure framework period, which is 2022-23 to 2024-25, GSIS spending plan amounts to 2.182 billion, which is spread as follows: 2022-23, 790 million. The following year, 714.9 million. 2022-25, 746.8 million. The department current budgets of 719 million for 2022-23 financial year is allocated as follows: operating budget of 4618 million consumes 64.2% of the budget allocation. The operating budget caters for the compensation of employees to the value of 282.1 million for funded establishment of 198 permanent positions and goods and services to the value of 179.7 million. Transfers and subsidies of 255 million consumes 35.4% of the entire GSIS budget allocation. Included in the transfers and subsidy allocation is 36.822 million allocation for the Media Development and Diversity Agency and 218.122 million allocation for Brand South Africa. Capital budget of 3.1 million consumes 0.4% of the budget allocation. These funds are set aside for the purchase of capital assets that will enhance the smooth operation of the department, as well as improve service delivery mechanisms. the funding provided to Brand South Africa and Media Development and Diversity Agency will allow these two important entities to continue their work in support of the President's investment drive. Our nation brand, social cohesion, and to ensure a vibrant and sustainable community media sector. The funding provided to the GCIS over 3-year medium-term expenditure framework period 2022-23 to 2024-25 will allow us to carry out the constitutionally mandated task of ensuring that all citizens and communities have access to information.
Honorable Minister, my apologies. There is a small button on the side of the phone that will allow your phone to go on silent. It is causing some disruptions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I have just switched it off. Thank you. Thank you for that intervention. Honorable Chair, Deputy Minister Pinky Kekana will give a full account of the work of these two entities. However, I want to highlight a few important undertakings by the MTA and Brand South Africa. During the 2021-22 financial year, the National Marketing, Advertising and Communication BBBE Sector Council was established. The main function of the council is to ensure that transformation in the media advertising council sector is promoted, monitored, and reported on. Furthermore, in the 2021-22 financial year, GCIS developed a draft media development and diversity amendment bill, which is expected to be in the outer financial year. During the 2022 financial year, working with the sector, the GCIS will facilitate the development of the Media Transformation and Diversity Sector Code. Brand SA continues to build our nation brand and to market South Africa internationally. Work continues to leverage on the African Continental Free Trade Area platform to ensure that South Africa and the rest of the continent can build a strong African reputation brand. While existing initiatives such as Play Your Part are being expanded to focus on international audiences, GCIS is keenly aware of the constraints on the fiscals that affect all components of government, and we nurture the hope that economic reconstruction and recovery will, in the foreseeable future, place more resources at our disposal. We will not abandon our hope of a brighter budget. We are forced to acknowledge that after years of doing more with less, we're approaching the precipice of doing less with less. We are therefore in a position where we do need to be strategically selective in what we choose to focus on, without promising the nation's right to information, without compromising, without compromising the nation's right to information. And we need to do so without stemming the flow of information to neighbors and partners on our continent and around the world. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, GCIS content focus is built around the priorities President Ramaphosa set out in 2022 State of the Nation address, namely overcoming COVID-19 pandemic, a massive rollout of infrastructure, substantial increase in local production, and employment stimulus to create jobs and support livelihoods, the rapid expansions of our energy generation capacity. To this, we have added the shameful and tragic pandemic of gender-based violence, which in the past few years has again visited horrific violence and death on families, including the family of a former member of this house, Mr. Godrich Gadi. I trust, honorable members, that all of us are united in offering our condolences to the Gadi family, as well as families just a few kilometers away from Parliament on the Cape Flats and further afield in the Northern Cape, who have been struck by this social disaster. Honorable Chairperson of the session, the focal areas I have highlighted call for communication that is credible, compelling, and communicative in the sense that our communications flow beyond our national boundaries into a global marketplace. We'll deepen the symmetry between proactive communication that will build the nation's trust and pride in what government and our country is achieving, and communication that will particularly bring opportunities and hope to South Africa's 12 million unemployed people. We'll deepen our regular engagement with the nation through media and through direct interaction to demonstrate that we are a government of our word, and we are a government in partnership with all sectors of society. And this is a social compact to which the president refers. Our content and form of presentation fights for eyeballs, airtime, readership, viewership, and followings around our country, around our continent, and around our world. This means we have to respond to change, and we need to be ambitious enough to set trends and practices that others could follow in the spirit of contributing through communications to a better Africa and a better world. South Africa as a country and our president as a leader are significant and highly respected players in global affairs, and our communication must project and respect this reality. The much changed communication environment in the past 2 years has necessitated that GIS must track the upskilling of the workforce to align the organization to occupational demands associated with the fourth industrial revolution. It also required that information and communication technology systems had to be upgraded to provide the capacity of regular virtual stroke webinar meeting using various platforms. It is self-evident that numerous virtual platforms and social media platforms used by GIS in this period will have to be maintained or further increase into the future. This will go hand in hand with the step up face-to-face engagement. A number of presidential outreach in Bizo are planned for this year, and GIS will continue to play a key supporting role in this regard. Honorable members, in the coming period, GIS will continue actively building on our many partnerships and collaborations to support our country's efforts to vaccinate over 70% of the target population. We'll also continue to drive the message that vaccines are effective in preventing serious illnesses, hospitalization, and death, and they remain our quickest path to normality. GIS will also continue to play a pivotal role in proactive campaigns such as Key Ready and VOMA vaccination weekends, which have succeeded in driving higher vaccination numbers, especially amongst young people. On the 9th December 2029, I joined my colleagues at the GIS on a picket commemorating International Anti-Corruption Day. And during this event, we spoke on the importance of whistleblowers in the fight against corruption. Many of the worrying revelations at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry were only brought to light because citizens stepped forward and told their stories. As government, we know that there have been many occasions where we have fallen short, public trust has been eroded, and people are rightly skeptical at times. As a collective, we have vowed to do better, and we must continue to do so. Corruption threatens to eat at the very soul of our young democracy, and it has to end. It is therefore heartening that government has made huge strides with a number of successful investigations by the SIU, as well as the forfeiture of assets. GIS supported the anti-corruption drive by profiling our various anti-corruption initiatives and programs on our suite of platforms across media and social media, public engagement, and through comprehensive messaging. The overall thrust has been to highlight positive intervention while also calling on the public to join the fight. Active citizens are the bedrock of any democracy and are key to greater social cohesion and nation building. I believe our key task in this period is to ensure that no South African is left behind, in line with the President's call to action in this year's State of the Nation address. Our communication must touch and change lives while also being relevant and easily understood. We dare not rest on our laurels by believing that what worked today will still be relevant tomorrow. We cannot allow a new divide to be created between those with access to resources and technology and those without. Our communication must therefore be a mixture of the old and the new. We must blend the best of both worlds and find ways to reach people where they live in a language or medium they understand. We'll deploy our tried, trusted, and necessary direct engagement methods of Imbizo, activation, outreach activities, community dialogues, and loud hailing. Similarly, Vukuzanzele newspaper, which is distributed once a month in a hard copy, with 850,000 copies per edition since October 2021 and published twice a month online, is steadily changing lives. The media sector as a whole has worked with GSIS and government every step of the way during these past 2 years. They have covered every angle of the pandemic and have been instrumental in supporting the call to vaccinate. They have been our partners in fighting vaccine hesitancy, dispelling vaccine myths, and have tackled fake news head-on. GSIS has worked closely with our partners in the media on a daily basis, either through media conferences, engagement, sharing of online content, webinars, and the bi-weekly cabinet media briefing and statement. We intend to build on this relationship to ensure an informed, educated, and ultimately active citizenry. Honorable members, Honorable Chair, a close companion on our journey of reaching out to the nation and the world is the esteemed Portfolio Committee on Communication. It's a committee we respect deeply as the elected representatives of our nation. It is a committee we respect for its commitment to the integrity and the efficiency of government communication. It is a committee we respect for its firm exercise of oversight and its creative exercise of making proposals that aid us in moving government communication. It is a committee that is tough and its critic and generous in its appreciation of the work we do. We thank the chair and members from all parties for their support and guidance, and we look forward to another year of partnership in service of the nation, robust and frank about the future of our country. I assure the committee that its commitment will be reciprocated by that of my colleagues at the GSIS, who will ensure that no one is left behind as we talk to. It is an honor for me to table the GSIS vote for 2023. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Our next speaker will be Honorable B.M. Maneli.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable House Chairperson, honorable members, honorable ministers and deputy ministers, fellow South Africans. Honorable House Chairperson, let me from the outset state that I rise on behalf of the ANC to support budget vote for Government Communications and Information Systems, GCIS. This debate takes place in the month dedicated to the continent of Africa every year, with the 25th May as the most important highlight of the month. Let us as Africans use this month not only to remember the formation of the Organization of African Unity, now African Union, or the wars and instability in some countries in the continent, but use this as an opportunity to communicate achievements and further implementable plans to take Africa and its people progressively to new heights. This brings to the fore the importance of GCIS in factually reporting on what African governments do on behalf of the people who installed them. Fellow South Africans, in the context of South Africa, it is always important to remind ourselves that the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, adopted in 1996 as the supreme law of the country, directs the mandate of GCIS. Section 195, subsection G of the Constitution directs that public should be provided with information that is timely, accurate, and importantly, accessible as a way of ensuring transparency. It is against this constitutional mandate that in 1998, the South African Communications Services a perceived former apartheid government propaganda machinery was dissolved and GCIS department established by cabinet. This was largely based on recommendations contained in the report of the task group on government communications, what is known as ComTask. Therefore, the department is responsible for providing strategic leadership and coordinating a government communication and information system that ensures the public is informed, has access to government information, programs, and policies that benefit them. The Media Development and Diversity Agency, MDDA, an entity of this department established in terms of the MDDA Act of 2002, strengthens the need for government and the public to communicate by ensuring plurality of views through community broadcasting and print media. MDDA makes grants available to deserving applicants as the way of ensuring lack of resources are not the reason for community media not to give life to the spirit and intent of the MDDA Act. Honorable House Chairperson, in its 54th National Conference, the ANC, amongst others, resolved the following with regard to government communications. One, that government communications must be improved, coherent and centralized through GCIS. Government communicators, including spokespersons, must comply with government policy on communications, and it continues. That GCIS should play a central role in government communication and must be adequately capacitated to achieve this. More emphasis should be placed on the coordination role of GCIS to ensure coherent messaging. Two, that existing coordination mechanisms such as government communication forum should be strengthened. There's a need to review the location of the GCIS in the presidency as a way to give it the necessary authority to oversee and coordinate government communications. Three, that its Imbizo concept needs to be strengthened to ensure that it achieves its purpose, that is unmediated and direct communications with the people. More creative ways are needed to enable and achieve this. In giving meaning to these resolutions, budget vote for allocates the department 719.9 million rands in 2022-2023, 714.9 million rands in 2023-2024, and 746.8 million rands in 2024-2025, which includes transfers to public entities, Brand South Africa, BSA, and MDDA. In terms of programs, the department has allocated 75% of the budget to the program Content Processing and Dissemination, and the program Intergovernmental Coordination and Stakeholder Management, and 25% in the program Administration. Fellow South Africans, the department's track record in spending allocated resources in line with approved priorities inspires confidence as demonstrated in the previous financial years. His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa's February 2021 State of the Nation address set out key government priorities which centered at the time on defeating COVID-19 pandemic, promoting economic reconstruction and recovery, building a capable state and combating corruption. In addition, the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, GBVF, remained a top priority. This informed the GCIS coordination of government-wide communication at the time. The department was also allocated 50 billion rands in the 2021-2022 financial year to drive a centralized COVID-19 vaccination rollout campaign. Through this allocation, communication activities ranged across the following areas from 1st April 2021 to date: educating and reassuring the public around the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines during the early phases of the vaccination program, combating vaccine hesitancy and disinformation, profiling the presidency's globally important role as an AU COVID-19 champion, communication support to the Deputy President as chair of the Interministerial Committee, IMC, on vaccines, communication support to the National Coronavirus Command Council, NCCC, the President's Coordinating Council, the PCC, and special sessions of cabinet devoted to COVID-19 and etc. This was also demonstrated in the hard lockdown periods when the message was focusing on saving lives of South Africans. The department did not only ensure a reliable single message from government, but it also ensured the clean audit record is kept even with emergency measures imposed by the state of disaster. We appreciate that the reliable message was not without destructive fake news. However, the department, working with all communication stakeholders, including social media platforms, was able to rebut the fake news as they occurred. Honorable Chairperson, whilst noting with appreciation that technology advancement as content processing and dissemination, thereby making information easily accessible, South Africa remains a country with the fault lines of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, owing to many years of apartheid national oppression characterized by race, gender, and class. Almost 3 decades since the advent of democracy, there are areas that have not yet enjoyed the benefits of connectivity brought about by the information age due to limited or no access to mainstream information platforms, especially those controlled by the private sector. The constitutional obligation of public service transparency brought about by providing the public with information that's timely, accurate, and importantly accessible shall remain a dream yet to be fulfilled. Therefore, government communications play this important role of closing the information gap as envisaged by the 2016 government segmentation model, which ensures all 5 agreed society segments receive diverse communication products and platforms. This budget vote ensures the department delivers on this, irrespective of the limited resources available. Honorable members, as I conclude, allow me to reflect on a few observations and recommendations as follows. On observations, in this budget vote, GCIS commits to increase its capacity, which includes bringing in youth through internships and general internal training of government communicators in different aspects to meet the demands of our times. Also make an observation that inadequate budget allocations, forcing budget cuts on key programs like ICT infrastructure, leaving studios unutilized, will not only diminish the relevance of GCIS, but has eminent potential to collapse the whole government communication and information system envisaged by the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, if no intervention is made. And therefore, I want to make the recommendation that the ministry and the committee must engage National Treasury and the Portfolio Committee on Appropriations, respectively, on the funding of GCIS to prevent the potential collapse. Once again, House Chair, the ANC supports budget vote 4, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. We'll now proceed to our next speaker, which is Honorable T. Bodlani.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, fellow South Africans. Government communications system, information system is well on its way to turning a corner after years of being used as a personal instrument for personal enrichment by those in the ruling party. Noting the above, it is unfortunate that the GCIS is featured prominently in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, which was headed by the then acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. To appropriate from President Cyril Ramaphosa in his SONA 2022, after receiving the first 2 parts of the Zondo report, he said, "The first 2 parts of the report make it plain to see that there was indeed state capture. Chairperson, this means that public institutions and state-owned entities were infiltrated by criminal networks intent on looting public money for private gain. The president goes on to say that the reports have detailed the devastating effects of this criminal activity on SAA, Transnet, Denel, South African Revenue Services, as well as government communications. Unfortunately, due to the lack of political will in prosecuting these criminals, some of whom have not fled to Dubai and are still out there, we can only pray for divine interventions for such humans. Let me place it on record that President Ramaphosa has done very little to bring stability to this department with a continued cabinet reshuffle, which have just added to the instability in the department over the past few years. That said, we now have a minister who has reached only 19% of the presidential performance agreement target. While the Democratic Alliance applauds the GCIS for 7 consecutive years that it has repeatedly demonstrated sound cooperative government, it is apt that we make a clarion call to President Ramaphosa to do his part in stabilizing the department and its entities. Chairperson, we note that the 2021-2022 financial year has been premised on the government's key priorities as set out in President Ramaphosa's February 2021 SONA address. These priorities centered on defeating the COVID pandemic, promoting economic reforms and recovery, building a capable state building a state capable of combating corruption and the dreadful gender-based violence. The department plays an integral part in championing programs which highlight the scourge of gender-based violence. As the Democratic Alliance, we are concerned about how these programs will be compromised due to the budget cut at the time when women of South Africa live in fear because of gender-based violence and femicide. The department managed to reduce the vacancy rate from 8.44% in 2020-21 financial year to 6.32% by February 2022, with the appointment of 3 new deputy director generals who assumed duty on the 1st of March 2022. Overall, the department experienced a turnover rate of 5.95% between April 1st, 2021 and 28 February 2022. Noting that the compensation of the department's 441 employees in 2020-2021 was the largest expenditure item, comprising of an estimated 38.3% of the total budget over the MTEF period. The DA categorically states that it is not the responsibility of the state to create jobs, but rather, as research has shown, the government should strive to create an environment suitable for economic growth and indeed jobs. Nonetheless, we do need to state our support for public servants to earn competitive salaries, to avoid having the government used as a training ground for the private sector, leading to brain drain and the institutional knowledge drop. The DA supports the endeavors of the department to professionalize government communication and making it as cost efficient as possible. This can be achieved if the department streamlines its processes and gets rid of deadwood and political appointees who are just vetting the system. Chairperson, the recruitment of 22 graduate interns in line with the Presidential Youth Employment Program during 2021-22 financial year, with the aim of alleviating unemployment amongst young graduates and providing opportunities to gain work experience is indeed welcomed. In the same breath, we warn and caution that these opportunities should be given to persons on merit and not on political affiliation, as is the norm in our government. While the Vuvuzenzele newspaper is distributed digitally and physically countrywide, it is the only national publication that is focused on government's key priorities, with an emphasis on service delivery programs and the opportunity created by government. We are worried that the department has no measures in place to monitor its impact, only focusing on stock levels as opposed to the impact of the distribution mechanisms and that of the message that they...
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Honorable Bojani. The next speaker is Honorable Tambo. Honorable Tambo.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The EFF rejects the budget vote for on government communications and information systems. We reject the committee report and the proposed budget of more than 700 million a year because to support this budget is to support Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa's propaganda machinery at the expense of taxpayers' money. One of the primary proposed purposes of having a platform such as government communications ought to have been to ensure that there is uniformity in the manner government communicates its decisions, plans, and how it responds during times of crisis. This department has been caught napping for far too long, and often during key moments when a solid and reaffirming message from government was needed over the past 12 months. In July last year, when the country was caught up in violent frenzy, whose origins can only be the destructive factional battles in the ANC, during which a president foolishly claimed that the violence in KwaZulu-Natal was a result of an insurrection and ethnic mobilization, it was left up to the then Minister of Defense to correct the foolishness and dismiss claims of an insurrection. The GCIS was nowhere to be seen.
Honorable Pambo.
Yes, sir.
My apologies. There is a hand from Honorable Khadebe.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'm rising on Rule 84. The member has just uttered unparliamentary words, like saying that the president is foolish.
Honorable Khadebe, I did not hear him to refer to the president, but I will consult with the table. Can you proceed in the meantime, Honorable Pambo?
The GCIS was nowhere to be seen as infrastructure was destroyed and as many as 400 African people were killed by a mob of racists in Phoenix. And when the police and the army were caught literally napping, unable to reassure citizens what the government was doing in that part of the country. This GCIS is also fiddling today, unable to communicate in any meaningful way the government's position on measures to fight the coronavirus pandemic. It is exactly as a result of this sloth-like way of working those corrupt opportunities, such as the former Minister of Health, saw an opportunity to loot millions of public money through the digital vibe scandal. If we had a properly functioning government communication systems, there would be no confusion on the government's approach to vaccination. There would be little room for information peddlers and swindlers who confuse the general public about the so-called dangers of vaccination. The end result of this poor handling of such a critical intervention is surely going to be loss of life of people who are not vaccinating, because the information market is flooded by negative messages of the impacts of the vaccine. To date, government's response to the humanitarian crisis in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape that resulted from the torrent rains and floods in those two provinces has been left to corrupt and inept bunch that constitutes the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal with still water, tank water. Thousands of people still do not know where to go for help because the state has no capacity to communicate to her own people. Today, the country does not know whether South African Airways has been sold or just handed over to a group of private people with ties to the ANC or not. This has been left to Jamnanda's department, a department that consistently gives out conflicting messages on the matter. The country also has...
Honorable Pambo?
Yes, sir.
A hand, Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm rising on Rule 82. The member knows very well that we cannot call each other on first name terms. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Pambo, I heard that as well. You called Honorable Godan Jamnandas. Can you use proper words to call colleagues?
Mr. Godan, the country also has been left wondering as to what exactly the government is doing to deal with the load shedding, as this responsibility is left to an invasive group of people who are intent of defending the current incompetence at ESCOM. These are key communication messages the GCIS ought to be communicating on behalf of government to ensure that there is uniformity and a standardized way of communicating. Government information sources such as the Vukuzenzele newsletter that has the potential to spread information to all corners of the country have been neglected and used only to give tenders to a disinterested group of ANC-aligned entrepreneurs whose sole obsession is looting of state resources. To date, more than 74% of young people who are unemployed do not have a faintest clue of what the department is doing to avert an unemployment disaster in this country. The so-called two-song service centers that the GCIS runs hopelessly useless for the vast majority of our people. Minister, under your leadership, the GCIS is a shadow of what it once was and is woefully incapable to restoring our people's confidence in the government. You even collapsed the Media Development and Diversity Agency, the MDDA. the firing of the CEO is just a symptom to a much larger problem of political incompetence. In the absence of a functional MDDA, it is black media companies that continue to be marginalized, while the same white-owned media companies continue to curate their racist message and print even through taxpayers' money. As the EFF will reject this budget. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pambo. Honorable Pambo, as much as you did not appear to call the president foolishness, you appeared to refer to his actions as foolishness. I want to caution that the honorable members, we use proper language that is deemed to be fit for Parliament. Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Honorable Shengwa from the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I read here on behalf of Honorable Majosi. It is fitting that we meet on 17 May, World Telecommunication and Information Society Day, a day founded to help raise awareness of the possibilities that internet and other information and communication technologies can bring to societies and economies. Communication is central to everything we do. It is how we share information, and in today's world, the multiple platforms and mediums used to get messages across to audiences. The importance of the Department of Government Communication and Information System can therefore not be overstated. In brief, the department is responsible for providing strategic leadership and coordinating a government communication system that ensures that the public is informed and has access to government information, programs, and policies that benefit them. As the IFP would like to remind all those present and joining us online that the GIS's coordination role cuts across all three spheres: national, provincial, and local government. One would hope that this would automatically ensure cooperation between various departments. However, it seems that this is not the case. According to the Portfolio Committee, and to quote, according to the GIS, as a mandate, constitutional mandate, it however still relies on power of persuasion to compel some departments to fulfill their communication obligations. Considering the type of information GIS is tasked with disseminating, at times life-saving, we call on all non-compliant departments to get their houses in order. And just for a country with over 60 million people, the digital footprint of this department is relatively small. Despite the department's claim to have seamlessly adapted to the modern ways in which the public consume receive information by embarking on an intensive penetration and sustained presence in the digital space, the numbers tell a different story. On Facebook, this department has just over 8,000 followers. On Twitter, slightly more, with almost 122,000 followers, while on YouTube, the department has 64,000 subscribers. However, who is speaking to the youth? Why does the department, for example, not have an Instagram account? According to international research agency Statista, as of March 2022, there were 6.8 million Instagram users in South Africa, with 18 to 23-year-olds making up 30.8% of the Instagram's audience, and users aged 24 to 35 with 30.3%. Interestingly, no mention is made in the budget report of specific allocations to increase the department's footprint on social media. Instead, it seems that TCI is a large chunk of the budget, but is arguably
Honorable Sioposangwa, can you please mute your microphone? You are disturbing the proceedings. Continue, Honorable Fengwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Interestingly, no mention is made in the budget report of specific allocations to increase the department's footprint on social media. Instead, it seems that GCIS is directing a large chunk of its budget on what is arguably a dying medium, print. According to the report, over the medium term, the budget plans to produce 30.6 million copies of Vuk'uzenzele at an estimated cost of 75 million rands per year for printing. Has the department conducted any monitoring and evaluation of the efficiency of Vuk'uzenzele as a vehicle to convey essential news to the broader public? This is a line item that possibly might need to be reviewed, and the money is invested more wisely. We welcome the plans for 1,140 community stakeholder engagement per year, which include community radio talk shows, activations at taxi ranks, and more information blintzes on commuter trains and social media campaigns. As the IFP, we feel this type of engagement is much more appropriate for reaching South Africans where they travel, work, and engage, and should be expanded. We further welcome the department's plans to invest in technological reforms in light of cybersecurity issues, as well as to enable the department to function effectively in a fast-moving digital environment. As the IFP, we must register concern in relation to the Media Development and Diversity Agency that overall expenditure on community and small commercial print and digital projects and community broadcast projects is expected to decrease from 5.8 million in 2020